Millionaire couldn't touch a woman for 12 years until a single mother crashed into his room and reawakened his heart. Hello, everyone, and a heartfelt welcome to you all. I'm your narrator, James, and I hope you're having a peaceful day. I'm truly honored to share this moment with you and deeply grateful for your support. How do the stories I tell make you feel? I genuinely welcome your insights, so don't hesitate to leave a comment below. Every opinion you offer matters, and I promise to treat them with care. If my storytelling adds value to your day, please consider subscribing to the channel. Your encouragement keeps this journey alive. Stay with me till the end, and I promise this tale will stir something within your heart. Now let's begin. Robert had everything a man could desire: wealth, influence, and distinction. At 40, he was a powerful millionaire, exuding rugged allure with his tall frame and silver-tinged beard. But beneath the facade of success was a hollow ache that no luxury could ease. His once bright gaze now mirrored sorrow, shaped by a betrayal that had left him fractured. The woman he loved had wounded him deeply, and her infidelity didn't just dissolve their vows. It decimated his faith in love. For 12 bitter years, Robert had secluded himself in a fortress of loneliness. He dated, yes, but no woman could thaw the frost she left behind. His life was an endless loop of meetings, acquisitions, and empty wins. Though his home was majestic, with its sweeping halls and grand decor, it felt more like a shrine to solitude. Each night, sleep eluded him as he lay imprisoned by silence and shadows. He tried to forgive, to forget, to feel again, but the scar was too deep. Love had become a foreign word, dangerous and deceptive, and while he surrounded himself with business partners and staff, no one ever truly saw him. The world praised him, admired him even, but not a soul knew the man who cried inside. Robert told himself he didn't need anyone. It was safer this way. No risks, no heartbreak. Yet even a fortress has cracks. In rare moments of honesty, Robert acknowledged the ache he buried, the desire to be understood, to be held, to speak without fear. But the fear always won. He had witnessed love's cruelty and chose detachment over devastation. Friends who remained in his life only saw his armor, never the fragile core hidden within. Robert had become a man who lived in routine, not joy. A man who woke to an empty bed, walked through lifeless corridors, and shared words only when they served his business. The lavish lifestyle, the wine, the cars, the penthouse suites, no longer thrilled him. Even as he watched the city from towering windows, it all passed like a blur. What puzzled him most was how others dared to love again. How did they find hope after being shattered? For him, the risk wasn't worth it. The game of love had left him broken, and he refused to play again. Still, now and then, a stranger's smile or a glimpse of warmth would stir something faint inside him. But it never lasted. He would push the feeling down, convinced that love had no place in his story. Robert had mastered the art of distance. He greeted the world with a polished mask, concealing a heart too bruised to trust. Admirers praised his success, envied his lifestyle, but none could guess the torment beneath. He had been a man who once gave love freely. Now he was just a ghost of that man, haunted by memories and hardened by time. Deep within, a sliver of that old self still breathed, but Robert smothered it. He couldn't bear to hope. He told himself he was in control, that he had rewritten his fate. But love has a way of finding the cracks, no matter how deep they're buried. Despite his protests, Robert was still human. He yearned for touch, for someone who saw past the titles and walls. But the fear was louder than the longing. He chose isolation, locked his emotions away, and swore to never hand over the key. The mansion felt colder each day. No voices echoed through its vast rooms. No laughter, no warmth. His mornings were lifeless, spent in silence that screamed louder than words. His colleagues stayed distant, never venturing beyond business. And Robert was fine with that, or so he claimed. He stopped seeking meaning in conversation, in companionship. The joy in small pleasures had dulled. He watched as time passed without him. The city below shimmered, yet he felt miles away. Love to him had become a myth, something others pursued foolishly. The damage his wife left behind taught him one lesson: never again. He would rather live numb than risk another betrayal. Yet still, behind all the walls, a need lingered. For someone to reach him, for a voice to break the silence. He had buried his pain deep, but it shaped every choice he made. Success became his armor, but it was also his prison. He lived not to thrive, but to protect himself from more heartbreak. Years blurred together. The mansion grew colder, his spirit dimmer. Robert became a man defined by the moment his heart broke, and every anniversary of that day carved deeper into his soul. He didn't dare trust, didn't dare love, not again. Still, beneath all the pain, a quiet wish flickered. Could someone one day free him? Could love find its way back in? He didn't believe it, not yet. So he waited, exiled by his own hand, wounded but functioning, surrounded by beauty but starved of affection, a prisoner of the past. The rain lashed against the tall windows of his luxury suite. Its rhythm mirrored the weariness in his bones. The latest business trip was like all the others, exhausting, forgettable, a blur. Robert had been on the road for weeks. Cities blended together, agendas replaced meaning. He had checked into the five-star hotel earlier that day with little thought, greeted by a polished receptionist whose words barely registered. With his key card in hand, he walked to his suite, a high-floor haven overlooking a wet, glowing city. The room was perfect, sleek, modern, expansive. But for Robert, it felt like all the rest, cold, empty. He kicked off his shoes, loosened his tie, and collapsed onto the bed. The sheets were crisp and cool, offering temporary comfort to his tired limbs. His muscles ached, his soul more so. He had no plans for the night, no one to meet, just solitude. Dinner would be room service, silence his only company. His phone buzzed, ignored. The endless demands of his empire no longer stirred urgency. He had reached the pinnacle, yet felt lost. Minutes passed, then an hour. Robert lay there, eyes fixed on the ceiling, thoughts adrift. The world below buzzed with life, but he was detached from it all. He didn't notice the first knock. It was soft, timid. Then it came again, louder. He sat up, puzzled. Who could it be at this hour? The clock blinked 10 p.m., and Sheena, exhausted, uncertain, still cradling her child with the kind of quiet resilience only a mother could possess, was the catalyst. She sat down gingerly on the edge of the bed, careful not to jostle Malaya. The room was quiet again, save for the soft hum of the hotel's ancient heating system and the distant sound of footsteps in the hallway. Robert didn't move, still watching her, his large frame awkwardly hovering near the door, like he wasn't sure if he should give her space or sit down beside her. But Sheena wasn't afraid. She was tired, bone-tired, but not afraid. There was something in Robert's presence that felt grounded. Yes, he was a stranger. Yes, this was a bizarre situation she'd never imagined she'd find herself in. But somehow, sitting here, with Malaya's tiny fingers curled against her chest, and Robert's steady gaze holding hers, the panic that had been buzzing in her bones just moments ago was quieting. "I think the front desk hates me," she finally said, her voice dry and low, a reluctant smile tugging at her lips. Robert blinked, surprised by her tone, and then a soft laugh escaped him. A real one, unpracticed, maybe a little rusty, like someone finding their voice again after a long silence. "Yeah," he said, "they seem committed to chaos tonight." For a brief second, their eyes met and held. The tension between them shifted, not gone, but transformed. No longer the electric kind born from confusion and awkwardness, but something warmer, softer, as though the universe had tugged two frayed ends of life together and tied them, just loosely enough, to see what would happen next. Sheena looked down at Malaya, then back at Robert. "Are you sure it's okay? Us being here?" Robert nodded, his hand still lingering in midair before dropping gently to his side. "It's okay," he said again, this time more firmly. "I think maybe this was supposed to happen." Sheena raised a brow at that, skeptical but intrigued. A hotel mix-up was supposed to happen? He shrugged, a crooked smile forming on his lips. "Stranger things have happened." And somehow she believed him. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the comfort of Malaya's soft breaths. Maybe it was the quiet ache in her chest that had been longing, just aching for something that felt a little like safety. But she didn't move to leave, and Robert didn't ask her to. In that small, golden-lit room with mismatched destinies and a baby between them, something unspoken was taking root. Not love, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it. Sheena didn't answer right away. Her hand lingered on the door, her eyes searching his face as though trying to decide if she should let him in. Not just into her room, but into her life, even if only for a conversation. There was a war inside her, a fierce tug of war between caution and something dangerously close to hope. Finally, she gave a slow nod and stepped aside, the door creaking open just enough for him to slip inside. Robert entered quietly, his movements cautious, reverent almost. He wasn't here to demand anything, not to overwhelm her with his need or his confusion. He just needed to understand, just needed to see her one more time, and maybe make sense of why this woman, this complete stranger, had stirred something in him he thought was long dead. "I know this is sudden," he said, his voice low, his hands nervously fumbling at his sides. "And I don't expect anything from you. I haven't felt like this in years. Since before the accident. Since before I lost everything that made sense to me." Sheena's eyes widened slightly, her lips parting as if she wanted to ask what he meant, but she stayed quiet, letting him continue. "I was numb for a long time," he went on, eyes locked on hers. 12 years. I've been breathing, moving, working, surviving, but not living. And then you walked in. And I felt something again. I don't even know your last name. I don't know anything about your life. But I know that when you left that room, something in me panicked. Like if I let you walk away, I might lose the only real thing I've felt in over a decade. Silence fell between them like snow, gentle, weighty, cold, and yet strangely beautiful. Sheena looked at him, and slowly her arms wrapped around her own body in a gesture of protection. Her voice when it came was a whisper. "Robert, my life is complicated, messy. I have a daughter, a history, pain. I don't know if I'm ready for someone to walk into that." Robert didn't flinch. "I'm not asking to fix you. I'm not here to save you. I'm just asking for a chance, a real one. Even if it's just coffee, even if it's just a walk in the morning sun before the world gets loud again, let me be there, even if it's just for now." Tears welled up in Sheena's eyes, not falling, but glimmering dangerously close to the edge. Her walls weren't shattered, but they were cracked, and for the first time in years, she felt the air reaching through them. "You're crazy," she said, trying to laugh, though her voice broke. "Probably," he smiled, a soft, sad kind of smile that said he knew exactly how broken he was. "But I'm here." She closed her eyes for a beat, inhaled deeply, and when she opened them again, there was something softer in her gaze. Not surrender, not certainty, but a maybe. And for Robert, maybe was enough. "Call you," Sheena said at last, her voice no louder than a breath, but filled with a gravity that echoed through the quiet room. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't some grand declaration, but it was everything. Robert felt his chest tighten, not with pain, but with the strange, unfamiliar ache of hope. Real, raw hope, the kind that had been buried beneath years of silence, broken trust, and pretending not to care. The kind that made him feel alive again. Sheena tucked the card carefully into her purse, her fingers lingering for just a second too long, as if she understood that it wasn't paper she was holding, but the fragile thread of something just beginning. She looked up at him once more, her eyes searching his, and in that glance they both seemed to recognize the truth of what stood between them. No promises, no pressure, just a door left slightly ajar. "I should probably get some sleep," Sheena added, her voice gentle but laced with a smile that reached all the way to her eyes. Robert nodded slowly. "Yeah, me too." They walked to the door together, the silence between them no longer strained, but settled, like the stillness after a storm, when the world feels new again. He didn't reach for her, didn't try to hold her, and yet Something passed between them as he stepped through the doorway. A knowing, a beginning. "Good night, Sheena." "Good night, Robert." And as the door closed softly behind him, Sheena leaned against it for a moment, her hand brushing over her purse where the card rested. Her heart beat a little faster now, not from fear, but from the terrifying and beautiful idea that maybe, just maybe, this was not the end of their story. Maybe it was the very beginning. There was a peace in the air, subtle, soft, and unmistakable. Sheena hadn't felt it in a long time. No pressure, no expectations. Just the quiet unfolding of something that felt real, natural. She took a slow, steadying breath, trying to calm the flutter in her stomach as Robert approached. He noticed it too, the way she seemed to hold back just slightly, and truthfully, he felt the same. Hopeful yet cautious, drawn in, yet aware of the delicate line they were both tiptoeing. But as he reached her, his expression softened. "You look stunning," he said, his voice warm and sincere. A hint of color touched Sheena's cheeks. She smiled, genuinely, almost shyly. "Thank you," she replied, her voice light. They exchanged a look then, one that said more than words could. This wasn't just a dinner, it was a beginning. As they walked into the restaurant, their steps fell into rhythm, side by side, the din of the city dissolving behind them. Inside, the world felt quieter, more intimate. The clink of glasses, the soft hum of conversation, it all created a bubble around them. Robert held the door open with a gentleman's ease, and Sheena stepped inside, feeling a warmth bloom in her chest. This felt different. No games, no trying to impress. Just two people sharing a moment. Maybe even something deeper. The hostess led them to a quiet corner by the window. Candlelight flickered between them as they sat, their eyes meeting once again. Something unspoken passed between them, a soft connection, growing. Conversation came easily, effortless, as if they'd known each other far longer than they had. They talked about everything and nothing, their favorite foods, places they'd been, childhood memories that shaped them. Laughter bubbled up, hesitant at first, then free. Sheena found herself laughing in a way she hadn't in ages. The sound surprised her. Robert watched her, captivated by the joy on her face. Every time she smiled, something inside him loosened, something that had been wound tight for far too long. As the evening wore on, their conversation deepened. They talked about things that mattered. Sheena opened up about her daughter, about life as a single mom, and the quiet hopes she still held. Robert shared the shadows of his past, the pain after his marriage ended, the loneliness he carried but rarely showed. There was vulnerability now, but it didn't feel heavy. It felt safe, honest, healing. With each word, each glance, their bond strengthened. And beneath the surface, something stirred, a sense of possibility, of more. By the time the last guests were finishing their meals, Robert and Sheena were still lost in conversation. Time had melted away. When the check came, Robert paid without hesitation, never taking his eyes off her. Outside, the night wrapped around them in a quiet hush. He offered his arm and she took it without a word. Their fingers brushed, just a whisper of contact, but it sent a shiver through both of them. Something electric. He walked her to her hotel, their footsteps slow, unwilling to reach the end too soon. When they stopped at the door, silence stretched between them. Not awkward, just full. Sheena turned to him, her eyes steady, searching his. In that stillness, there was no past, no fear, only the moment. Robert smiled and gently took her hand. He lifted it to his lips and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. Soft, reverent, full of meaning. To her, it wasn't just a gesture. It was a promise of something more. "Good night, Robert," she whispered, her voice carrying a quiet hope. "Good night, Sheena," he replied, his tone low and full of emotion. As she slipped inside, closing the door behind her, Robert stood for a moment longer. His heart was beating faster than it had in years. He had come to dinner uncertain. Now he was leaving with clarity. This wasn't just a date. This was the start of something real. In the weeks that followed, Robert found himself caught in a web of emotions he'd thought long gone. Each date with Sheena left him breathless, in the best way. Her laughter, her touch, her presence. It was like fire and light rolled into one, and it was awakening something inside him. She didn't just see the polished version of him, the successful businessman. She saw him, the man beneath the surface, the man who had been bruised, who had been lonely, the man who had almost forgotten what it meant to be wanted for who he truly was. With every date, every shared meal, every moment stolen between schedules, the tension grew, magnetic, inevitable. Their hands touched more. Their glances lingered longer. The way she smiled at him made his breath catch. The way she listened made him feel whole again. He was falling for her, and he didn't want to stop. There was something primal in the pull between them, a desire neither dared name, but both felt burning just beneath the surface, in the way their knees brushed under the table, in the way his eyes would find her lips mid-conversation, in the silences that stretched not because there was nothing to say, but because everything was being said in a single look. Then came the night it finally happened. Beneath the canopy of stars, with the breeze curling gently between them, Robert reached for her. His hand trembled, just slightly, but his heart was steady. Sheena looked up, sensing it before he moved. And when he kissed her, it wasn't gentle at first. It was fierce, pent up, raw. Her hands found his shoulders, then his neck, and she pulled him closer with a need that matched his. The world blurred around them. His lips tasted of longing, hers of surrender. When they finally pulled apart, their breaths came quick and shallow. But in their eyes, something had shifted. A knowing, a beginning. "I've never wanted anything more," he whispered. "I feel the same," she said, voice thick with emotion. From that night on, something changed. Their dates became a dance of hunger and affection, their silences deeper, their touches bolder. He couldn't stop thinking about her, and she, despite her fear, felt herself opening again. This wasn't just desire. It was connection. It was hope. It was love, in its earliest, most undeniable form, and neither of them was willing to walk away. Robert has always known that Sheena's daughter is not just part of her life. She is an extension of her very soul. As he sits there, eyes locked on Sheena, he realizes that the love she's asking for isn't a separate promise. It's a continuation of the love he already feels. It isn't a matter of choosing between Sheena and her daughter. It's about choosing to love both, to step into their world with open arms and an open heart. And Robert doesn't hesitate, not even for a moment. The thought of loving this little girl, of becoming the father figure she deserves, fills him with a pride and purpose he hadn't known he could feel. He turns to Sheena, his gaze unwavering, and the words come easily, like they've been waiting for this moment all along. "She's already mine," he says softly, his voice rich with certainty and warmth. There is no doubt, no second guessing, because loving Sheena means loving all of her, and that includes her daughter. He's already imagined what it would mean to guide her, protect her, and share his life with her. Blood doesn't define family. Love does, and she is part of Sheena. That's more than enough for him. Sheena's breath catches. The silence that follows stretches between them, heavy with meaning. Then her tears finally spill, tears that have been held back for weeks. She wipes them quickly, but Robert sees them. He leans forward and gently brushes them away with his thumb. "You don't know how much that means to me," she whispers, her voice trembling. "I always knew that anyone I let into our lives would have to love her too. But hearing you say it out loud, it's everything. You're giving me more than I ever thought I could have." Robert pulls her into his arms, holding her tightly as if he never wants to let go. Her head rests against his chest, and for the first time in a long time, Sheena feels peace. She feels understood, seen, loved not just as a woman, but as a mother. The depth of Robert's commitment wraps around her like a blanket of warmth. She doesn't know how they'll navigate the road ahead, but one thing is clear: they'll do it together. As they pull apart, Robert smiles, his heart overflowing with love and a newfound sense of belonging. "So, is that a yes?" he asks with a playful grin, easing the moment with lightness. Sheena laughs, a soft, genuine sound that carries the weight of everything she feels for him. "Yes," she says simply, "Yes, Robert, I'll marry you." And just like that, everything feels right. The past, the pain, the uncertainty, all of it fades into the background. In its place is something whole, something beautiful, a promise, a future. The day they marry is quiet and deeply personal, exactly as they wanted. No grand fanfare, no crowds, just the people who matter most gathered in an intimate chapel bathed in golden sunset light. Robert stands at the front, his suit perfectly tailored, his salt and pepper beard trimmed, and his eyes that have seen so much, gleaming with love. He reflects on how far he's come. Only a year ago, he was a man broken by betrayal, closed off, guarded. But Sheena changed that. She reached into his darkness and brought him back to life. And now, as he waits to make her his wife, he feels like the luckiest man alive. Sheena walks down the aisle slowly, each step graceful, purposeful. Her dress is elegant in its simplicity, and her beauty radiates from within. Her skin glows, her curls frame her face perfectly, and she holds her daughter's hand. The little girl looks up at her mother with awe and affection, and Robert's heart aches with love. This isn't just a wedding, it's the beginning of a family. As Sheena reaches him, Robert takes her hand, and the world quiets around them. They exchange vows, sincere, vulnerable promises to love and honor each other through all of life's seasons. When the officiant pronounces them husband and wife, gentle applause fills the chapel. But the real magic begins later that night. After the laughter and quiet celebration, they retreat to their private suite. Alone at last, they stand facing each other, breathless, hearts still racing from the day. Sheena looks at him, eyes full of love and trust. Robert sees everything in her, the strength, the vulnerability, the fire, and it moves him to his core. He steps closer, hands on her waist, pulling her into him until their bodies meet. She wraps her arms around him, and the kiss that follows is soft, almost reverent. It deepens slowly, then all at once, passion building as months of longing and emotion rise to the surface. Robert takes his time, unwrapping her like the treasure she is. Every touch is a promise, every kiss a vow. When he finally lays her down and joins with her, it's not just physical, it's emotional, spiritual. It's two souls becoming one. They make love as husband and wife, deeply, tenderly, hungrily, and when they fall asleep in each other's arms, it's with the quiet certainty that they found something lasting, something real. In the months that follow, their new life unfolds in the most ordinary and extraordinary ways. Mornings begin with the warmth of Sheena beside him, her daughter's laughter echoing down the hall. The house they share becomes a home, a sanctuary filled with books, music, and memories in the making. Sheena's daughter, once shy and uncertain around him, now runs into his arms calling, "Daddy!" And every time she says it, Robert's heart swells with indescribable love. He didn't need to share blood to be her father. He's there for her every step, every bedtime story, every scraped knee. He's her protector, her family, and Sheena sees it all. The way he loves her daughter, the way he shows up without hesitation. She watches them together, laughing in the backyard, reading stories under a blanket, and she knows she made the right choice. Her heart, once so guarded, is finally safe. They're not perfect. Life still throws challenges their way, but there's beauty in the way they face it together, in the way they love, with honesty, tenderness, and a fierce, enduring devotion. They've built something unshakable, a home, a family, a future.